4 police officers murdered.
Got fired, officer down.
6 are shot. At least 3 have been killed in Baton Rouge 12 days after the police shooting there of Alton Sterling. Also tonight,
nothing justifies violence against law enforcement. Attacks on police are an attack on all of us.
police in Cleveland are on guard against any attempt to disrupt the Republican convention. And the nominee in waiting gives 60 Minutes a preview of a Trump presidency.
We're going to declare war against ISIS. We have to wipe out ISIS. These are people that
with troops on the ground.
This is a special edition of the CBS Weekend News with Scott Pelley, reporting tonight from the Republican National Convention in Cleveland, Ohio.
This is our Western edition. On the eve of the convention, the country has been shaken by another deadly act of violence. 6 law enforcement officers were shot this morning in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. 3 are dead. Another is in critical condition. They were ambushed by a gunman that the police identify as a black ex-Marine from Kansas City. The shooting comes less than 2 weeks after a black man was shot to death by 2 white officers during a struggle with the Baton Rouge police. That was followed by the assassination of 5 Dallas officers by a black gunman who was out for revenge. David Begnaud is in Baton Rouge.
Just before 9 a.m. this morning, officers exchanged gunfire with a suspect less than a mile from police headquarters. Authorities say officers were responding to a 911 call after witnesses saw a man acting suspiciously. He was dressed in all black and carrying a rifle. Once officers confronted the suspect, he started shooting. 6 officers were shot, 3 were killed, and 3 wounded.
Order, shot fired, officer down, shot fired, officer down.
Calls into 911 captured the terrifying scene.
Shots fired, officer down behind the building. Unknown where the subject shooting from.
Baton Rouge Police Chief Carl Dabadie.
Killed in the line of duty. One is 41 years old and has just under a year of service. The other is 32 years old with 10 years of service.
Police say the suspect is Gavin Eugene Long. He is a 29-year-old black man from Missouri. He was killed at the scene. Long, who is an ex-Marine, is thought to have been the only gunman. Police with heavy arms guarded area hospitals where the wounded officers were treated.
Public safety remains our priority, and we will continue to do our job in the light of what's happened.
Tensions between the police and the Baton Rouge community have been high ever since the shooting death of Alton Sterling at the hands of 2 Baton Rouge police officers. His death and that of Philando Castile, a Minnesota man killed by a cop during a traffic stop, has led to weeks of protests against police brutality across the country. 10 days ago, a gunman in Dallas shot and killed 5 police officers during a Black Lives Matter march. Alton Sterling's 15-year-old son Cameron urged for calm.
All police aren't bad. They all aren't bad. There are some that are bad, but all aren't bad. How I feel all police shouldn't be punished for other police's crimes. The police in Dallas, Texas, they didn't deserve that because nobody knew if they had kids to go home to. Those kids need their parents.
And one of the officers killed here in Baton Rouge was the father of a 4-month-old baby boy. Tonight, the crime scene, which is about a half-mile behind me, is still active with area law enforcement. 2 people have been arrested as persons of interest in connection to the shooting. They are being questioned now. And Scott, as for the gunman, we're told he left the U.S. Marine Corps back in 2010 with an honorable discharge.
David Begnaud reporting for us tonight from Baton Rouge. David, thank you. Well, in Dallas last Tuesday, the president said that he has had to address the nation too many times about mass shootings. He had to do it again today.
We need what we saw in Dallas this week, as a community came together to restore order and deepen unity and understanding. We need the kind of efforts we saw this week in meetings between community leaders and police, some of which I participated in, where I saw people of goodwill pledge to work together to reduce violence throughout all of our communities.
Joining us now with some important insight into all of this is Bill Bratton. He's the New York City Police Commissioner and the former police chief in Los Angeles. Commissioner, how do the police help to stop this cycle of violence?
Well, first off, I think it's quite clear that we are in perilous times, the country and the police profession. And the dual obligation of the police is certainly to protect the public while at the same time trying to protect themselves. That we're in uncharted waters here at this particular point in time in American policing, world policing for that matter. That we have the now new threats of terrorism, we have the assassination issues, we have always the concern about crime. And so policing in America is getting a lot more difficult. Fortunately, that American policing has stood up to these challenges in the past and will work very hard to stand up to them again.
You had 2 officers shot and killed, targeted, sitting in their police car. I wonder, what did you change after that? What did you learn from that?
We changed quite a bit. We had 2 of our police officers in uniform sitting in a marked car who were assassinated. An individual who had traveled up by train from Baltimore. It was during the time of all the turmoil of Ferguson and the Eric Garner chokehold matter here in New York. They were murdered because they were police officers. That was the motivation. Since that time, we have done a lot in New York. We have thoroughly changed our training. Technology, for example, the smartphones. I have 35,000 of these now out in the field. The tragedy of that event, we received notice that this individual was coming to New York. We got the information just about the same time those 2 officers were being murdered. Today, we have put out continual notifications to our officers, updating every one of our 35,000 on what is happening. Photographs, if we have them, when we have suspects. So we've done a lot on the technology side, but as importantly, we've done a lot on the community side. The idea of building relationships, building trust. It's quite clear that in a lot of our communities, particularly minority communities, there is not trust in American policing. There's not trust in American government, for that matter. And we need to find ways to see each other, to hear each other, to find common ground that we can stand on and have dialogue, and not assassinations, not murders, not violence.
Bill Bratton, Commissioner of the New York City Police Department. Commissioner Bratton, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Here in Ohio today, Governor John Kasich turned down a call from the Cleveland Police Union head to suspend open carry laws during this convention. The governor said he just doesn't have the authority to do it. Jeff Pegues is covering security here and following the events in Baton Rouge as well. Jeff?
Scott, the reality is threats against police have been high recently. Just 10 days ago, the FBI sent out a bulletin to law enforcement in Louisiana warning of violence. The bulletin cited chatter online calling for people to kill officers in Louisiana. And just last week, the FBI warned local police in Miami of threats. Many departments in that area doubled up on patrols. In fact, many departments across the country today have ordered officers to patrol in pairs. Today, New York, Chicago, and Boston police departments reiterated that order. Some of those directives came after a gunman killed 5 Dallas police officers and wounded another 9 at a rally on July 7th. Here in Cleveland at the convention, police now bracing for the prospect that some of these protests could get out of control. Obviously, complicating matters is this open carry law, but police say, Scott, that they are prepared.
Jeff Pegues in our convention newsroom tonight. Jeff, thank you. The violence today has largely overshadowed the convention that begins here tomorrow, but it did give the Republican candidate an opportunity as well. Here's Major Garrett.
The police deaths in Baton Rouge intensified Donald Trump's solidarity with law enforcement and his own restive party's focus on law and order. How many law enforcement and people have to die because of a lack of leadership in our country? We demand law and order, Trump said on social media, adding later, our country is divided and out of control. The world is watching.
You're fired.
On the eve of a convention set to nominate the former reality TV star, billionaire, and political novice, a new CBS News poll showed 75% of voters in key swing states are pessimistic about the direction of the country, an anxiety Team Trump intends to exploit. Campaign manager Paul Manafort.
The gridlock of the last 25 years, of which Hillary Clinton has been not just a card-carrying member, but a leader of, is created a situation in the United States where people can no longer afford to live.
Mindful of the bloodshed back home, Louisiana Republican delegates decided to ride out the convention with heavy hearts instead of returning home.
I'm just shocked. I'm just stunned. I'm depressed. To start the week like this was going to be a week of celebration. It's like the balloon has been burst.
Top Republican strategist Sean Spicer described the atmosphere here as solemn and slightly on edge.
When you look at what we are domestically and foreign policy-wise, right now the world is a very unstable place. We need law and order. We need stability. We need a steady hand.
Renegade efforts to deny Trump the nomination through rules challenges have repeatedly failed. A last-ditch effort is scheduled for this convention floor tomorrow. Scott, top RNC officials tell us they'll use the same muscle they have throughout and predicted party unity eventually will prevail.
Major Garrett on the floor of the convention for us. Major, thank you. Joining us now, our CBS News political director and anchor of Face the Nation, John Dickerson. John, when you look at these events of the last several weeks, there was Dallas, Orlando, Nice, the coup in Turkey. The world seems chaotic. How do you think that changes the dynamics of the conventions and the race for president?
Well, we're about to have 2 weeks of choreographed events made to make these candidates look presidential. But those events you mentioned, abroad and at home, have interrupted those scripts. And they are now presenting the candidates with actual presidential tests. The first is, what will they look like if they go into that briefing room as the president did today? Will they have the words for the moment? And that means, will they be able to give people some sense of direction, some sense of controlling the chaos when they think the culture is tearing? And then beyond words, do they have a deeper understanding of these issues? Do they have some vision and a mindset and the emotional balance to carry out whatever their plans are? Presidents often complain when they're in the White House that they don't have control over events. And now these candidates, before 2 pre-programmed weeks, are getting some taste of what that's like.
It's impossible to handicap these things, but does chaos on the world stage benefit one campaign over another?
Well, it really depends on how they react. The tension in the system is that both candidates are trying to disqualify the other, which means in an anxious time, when people are anxious, each candidate is saying, you should be more anxious if my opponent gets elected, which means at a time when everybody is already pretty jittery, the campaign might make them more so.
The insight of John Dickerson, our CBS News political director, who will be with us for the coverage all week long. John, thanks very much. CBS News live coverage of the Republican National Convention will begin tomorrow on the CBS Evening News, and we'll have an hour-long primetime special each evening at 10 Eastern Time, 9 Central. That is 7 in the West, and of course there will be extensive coverage every morning on CBS This Morning. Coming up next on this special edition of the CBS Weekend News from Cleveland, 60 Minutes, Leslie Stahl asked Donald Trump whether he'd send U.S. ground troops to fight ISIS. Shortly after Donald Trump formally introduced Indiana Governor Mike Pence as his running mate yesterday, they sat down with Leslie Stahl in Trump's apartment in New York for their first joint interview. Here's some of what you'll see tonight on 60 Minutes.
You said you would declare war against ISIS. What exactly do you have in mind?
By the way, it is war.
No, but does that, when you say declare war, do you want to send American troops in there? Is that what you mean?
Look, we have people that hate us. We have people that want to wipe us out. We have people that, if given the chance, will try to wipe us out. And as you know, and as everyone knows, I was against the war in Iraq. I was totally against it because I said it would destabilize the Middle East, and it has. That's exactly what's happened. It was a very bad decision. The way President Obama got us out of that war was a disaster.
But do you want to get us back in there?
No, I want to win. I want to win.
But
let me explain.
Declare war.
We're going to declare war against ISIS. We have to wipe out ISIS. These are people that chop off heads.
With troops on the ground.
I am going to have very few troops on the ground. We are going to have unbelievable intelligence, which we need, which right now we don't have. We don't have the people over there. We are going to
you want to send Americans?
Excuse me. And we're going to have surrounding states and, very importantly, get NATO involved, because we support NATO far more than we should, frankly, because you have a lot of countries that aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing. And we have to wipe out ISIS. Hillary Clinton invented ISIS with her stupid policies. She is responsible for ISIS. She led Barack Obama, because I don't think he knew anything. I think he relied on her. As Bernie Sanders said, her judgment is so bad. She's got bad judgment. She's got bad instincts.
But I still don't know if you're going to send troops over.
Very little.
But
I'm going to get
war,
neighboring states, and we are going to get NATO. We're going to wipe them out. We're going to wipe them out fast.
What does that mean?
This is the kind of leadership that America needs.
But what
and it begins with deciding to destroy the enemies of our freedom.
How?
And how we do that, I have every confidence. You remember I served on the Foreign Affairs Committee. I was there. I visited Iraq and Afghanistan 10 years
But that's when we
in a
had
row.
troops in there.
And we had troops in there. And then I watched that war go so poorly, and then I watched the surge. And by the time Barack Obama becomes president of the United States, Iraq was stable. But it was his precipitous withdrawal leading up until the last election that created the anarchy in which ISIS arose out of the sand.
You can see Leslie Stahl's interview with Donald Trump and Mike Pence, their first interview together. That is tonight on 60 Minutes. Coming up next, retribution in Turkey after members of the military tried to overthrow the government. Tonight, a key U.S. ally is still reeling from that attempt to overthrow an elected government. A faction within Turkey's military sent warplanes and tanks to major cities on Friday. Nearly 300 people were killed. But the coup failed, and now Turkey's president is filling the jails with his enemies. Holly Williams is in Istanbul.
The Turkish government has moved swiftly, rounding up not just the soldiers who attempted to seize power, but others who it views as enemies, including judges and prosecutors. People are now in custody, with more arrests to come. At a funeral today for some of those killed in the failed coup, President Recep Tayyip Erdogan vowed to destroy what he called the virus that caused it. The attempted coup was a night of chaos and violence as tanks rolled onto city streets. Fighter jets buzzed overhead. A bomb tore through Turkey's parliament, and members of the military took control of Turkish state TV, announcing martial law. But when President Erdogan called in from his cell phone, urging his supporters to rise up, thousands did. Nearly 300 people lost their lives in the clashes, including some of the coup plotters. By early Saturday morning, the soldiers were surrendering. And just a few hours later, Erdogan's supporters were celebrating. But the president, who's an Islamic conservative, is himself accused of undermining Turkey's democracy, locking up his rivals and seizing control of an opposition newspaper. Anger over Erdogan's authoritarian tactics apparently provoked the attempted coup, and many here fear there'll now be worse to come. Turkey is a key US ally in the fight against ISIS, with American warplanes using a Turkish base to launch airstrikes. President Erdogan's combative style has often frustrated US officials. But Scott, America also wants a stable Turkey in a region as volatile as this one.
Holly Williams in Istanbul for us tonight. Holly, thank you. And we'll be back in a moment with an update on the police assassinations in Baton Rouge. Updating our top story, police in Baton Rouge are continuing to investigate the ambush shootings of 6 officers today. 2 police officers and 1 sheriff's deputy were killed. A 4th is in critical condition tonight. A suspect was killed in the battle. He's identified as Gavin Long, a black ex-Marine from Kansas City, Missouri, who turned 29 today. The shootings come nearly 2 weeks after Alton Sterling was shot to death during a struggle with 2 white Baton Rouge police officers. President Obama reiterated today there is no excuse for violence against law enforcement. He cautioned speakers at the upcoming political conventions to be careful with their language. The president said we need to temper our words and open our hearts. We'll begin with the latest attack on police in this country. It happened this morning in Baton Rouge. 6 officers were ambushed and shot. 3 of them were killed, 2 Baton Rouge police officers and an East Baton Rouge sheriff's deputy. One of the wounded is in critical condition. Police killed the gunman, Gavin Long. He was an ex-Marine from Kansas City. Today was his 29th birthday. David Begnaud is in Baton Rouge for us tonight. David?
Scott, good evening. We are about a mile from the crime scene. Airline Highway is just beyond me. It is still an active police presence. You have law enforcement officers from around the Baton Rouge area, but also around the state of Louisiana. A SWAT team, a statewide SWAT team, has been activated and resources from around the state have been deployed here. Airline Highway, where the crime scene is located, is also not very far. The crime scene is not very far from the Baton Rouge Police Headquarters, less than 3 miles. The Baton Rouge Police Headquarters, of course, has been the site of so many protests over the last 12 days, ever since the death of Alton Sterling at the hands of 2 Baton Rouge police officers. More on the crimes that happened here today. We're told that before 9 a.m. this morning, a call came in to 911 of a man wearing all black clothing and walking with a rifle down Airline Highway. Police responded. Then the call went in about shots fired. Then officers were reported down. As backup arrived, we're told that officers engaged the gunman. Shots were exchanged between law enforcement and the gunman was shot dead at the scene. Tonight, we know more about the gunman. He left the U.S. Marine Corps back in 2010, we're told, with an honorable discharge. We are learning more information about the 3 officers killed. 2 of them are from the Baton Rouge Police Department. 1 is from the East Baton Rouge Parish Sheriff's Office. Scott, we're told one of the officers who died is the father of a 4-month-old baby boy.
And repeating, 3 officers killed, 1 in critical condition, 2 have injuries that are not believed to be life-threatening. David Begnaud, thanks very much. With the Republican National Convention about to begin tomorrow, Cleveland's mayor and police chief both said today that the city is prepared for everything from violent protests to terror attacks. Our Homeland Security correspondent Jeff Pegues has more on this.
Coast Guard boats are locking down Cleveland's Cuyahoga River. Even the waterfront has been divided up into security zones. Lieutenant Commander Mickey Doherty. What kind of security enhancement will the Coast Guard provide?
So we'll have a 24/7 presence throughout the convention. Multiple vessels will be in this area to ensure no traffic comes in or out.
Cleveland's transformation into what looks like a fortress is all but complete. Miles of steel barricades and concrete barriers line key downtown streets and intersections. Officials continue to refine security plans after today's attack on police in Baton Rouge, last week's shooting in Dallas, and the attack in France. Cleveland Police Chief Calvin Williams.
Oftentimes we have big events here in the city of Cleveland, and we use blocking vehicles, we use concrete barriers and things like that at positions that we think may be vulnerable to attacks like that happened in Nice.
Cleveland's municipal court is clearing jail space to process as many as 1,000 people a day, which is more than any convention in recent memory. In addition, the city upped its liability coverage from $10 million to $50 million to cover legal claims. Some protesters are vowing to come here armed. In Ohio, you can openly carry some weapons. Cleveland Mayor Frank Jackson.
How do you guarantee that this will be an event, even with open carry, that will be safe for the people who come in peace?
We guarantee that that is our effort. I wish I had the ability to guarantee the details of life. It doesn't work that way.
Closer to where the convention is being held in the Quicken Loans Arena, that is the hard security perimeter. Weapons aren't allowed there, but Scott, farther away in another zone, you can openly carry.
Jeff Pegues in our convention newsroom. Jeff, thank you. Well, now to the politics inside this convention. Juliana Goldman has that.
If you look at one of the big reasons that I chose Mike, and one of the reasons is party unity, I have to be honest.
Unity may have been the goal in putting Mike Pence on the ticket, but it won't be a unified Republican Party that convenes in Cleveland to celebrate Donald Trump.
We've spent.
The bitter primary fight, Trump's inflammatory rhetoric, and concerns he could hurt Republicans down the ballot have led many GOP lawmakers and luminaries to stay home, like nearly every Republican senator in a tight re-election race. One exception, Ohio Senator Rob Portman, but he won't be speaking. The host state's other top elected official, Governor John Kasich, will be here without stepping foot in the convention arena. Instead, he'll be attending events across the city, many just blocks away.
They're much, much better off to take this week in their own states for their own elections.
On Face the Nation today, former RNC chairman Haley Barbour excused missing senators, but not Kasich.
Well, you know, it would be great if John Kasich were here and if he was enthusiastically support the nominee.
Enthusiasm may be a tall order. Just 2 blocks from the Quicken Loans Arena, one vendor is selling Trump T-shirts alongside books written by Republican anti-Trump activists. The latest CBS News Battleground poll in Ohio shows that just 37% of Trump voters are backing him because they like him. Instead, 53% are voting for Trump to oppose Hillary Clinton.
All those opposed, nay.
Nay. Last week, officials from the RNC and the Trump campaign spent days in marathon meetings, successfully killing efforts to keep Trump from getting the nomination on the convention floor.
I don't know everything that's going to come down, but it's not going to be unified.
But Kendall Unruh, one of the leaders of the Stop Trump movement, says they'll still make their voices heard.
What has been simmering out there has now become this raging wildfire that actually is now going to be taken to the floor.
The question for Donald Trump is whether he can leave this convention with having an actually energized Republican base. If he can't, Scott, it'll be that much more difficult for him to mobilize grassroots voters and really compete against Hillary Clinton.
Juliana Goldman outside the convention hall for us. Juliana, thanks. Kendall Unruh, who you just saw in Juliana's report, is a delegate from Colorado. She was originally a supporter of Ted Cruz and then led the attempt here to change the rules to unbind the delegates so the delegates could vote for whoever they wanted, but that has not come to pass. Ms. Unruh, this is your 8th Republican convention, and all the previous 7 you have always supported the nominee. Why not now?
Well, that's asked of me a lot, but because he's not a Republican and he doesn't exemplify the platform that we have. And right now, the base is not excited to go out and work for Donald Trump. And that's unfortunately what's going to happen is we're not going to win against Hillary. And the whole movement has been to make sure that there's another nominee that can actually unite the party, because right now it's extraordinarily divided.
Are you resigned to losing this election?
Oh, we haven't lost right now because we're still in the nomination process, and there's still a plan that we can actually deny the rules, the incredible overreach power grab that the establishment actually strangled the voice of the grassroots, and they did that in the Rules Committee.
Is there any chance that you have the votes to pull that off tomorrow?
Oh, we know we have the votes, and this is what the message needs to get out, and this is what we're doing, because we have instructed our delegates from day one, the ones that were truly concerned about the fact that they were having to vote against their conscience and cast a ballot for someone they just truly, in good faith, could not do.
What has caused this rift in the party?
Well, this candidate has incited this rift, and then because from day one, he could have shut this down, the intensity of the supporters of his. But instead of shutting it down, he incited it and he encouraged it.
But millions of people voted for him.
Well,
are you on the wrong side of that?
9% of the people voted for him. If you look at the fact that you had 14 million votes, but 11 million were through your open primaries and your blanket primaries. Those were your Democrats and your independents. The very small percentage of Republicans actually voted for him.
Kendall Unruh, delegate of Colorado at her 8th Republican National Convention and now leading the anti-Trump faction here. Good to be with you. Thanks so much.
Thank you for the time.
Major Garrett has been covering the Trump campaign from the very start, and he's joining us here tonight. Major?
4 challenges, Scott, for Donald Trump at this convention. 1, deal with the Never Trump movement. The vote counters for the Trump Organization and the RNC tell us that's going to be done and dispatched as of tomorrow. 2, reassure social conservatives. A big move in that direction was to put Indiana Governor Mike Pence on the ticket, but that work is not done. Pence has to have a prominent role at this convention, and social conservatives need to believe he's more than just an afterthought to Trump as his running mate. 3, soften the Trump image. Soften some of those rough edges around his persona. There'll be a concerted effort at this convention, Scott, with testimonials from friends and family about Trump's philanthropy, his strength as a father, and lastly, to address the issue most concerning Republicans about Trump, do Americans believe he can actually be a fit and ready president of the United States? His acceptance speech Thursday and everything around this convention is going to try to convey that Trump is ready and willing and capable of being a president.
Major Garrett reporting from the convention floor for us. Major, thank you. Let's bring in Anthony Salvanto, the Director of Elections for CBS News. Anthony, Donald Trump tweeted today that America needs law and order, and he says he is the law and order candidate. You've been looking at the most recent CBS News political polls. What are the voters saying about that?
Well, that is what Republicans want to hear, Scott. They say the solutions to these problems come through a strong leader that can restore order, but by contrast, Democrats say that they're looking for a leader with more compassion who can bring together both sides. So on this issue, as on so many issues, you see these deep partisan divides, Scott.
We just heard Kendall Unruh tell us that she has the votes to stop Trump. Many other people believe that that's not the case. Does the GOP unify behind Trump?
He's got some work to do here. He has not yet convinced all of these Republicans that he represents their core values and the essence of their party. And they, like a lot of swing voters, say coming into this convention, they're looking for him to soften his tone and soften the rhetoric.
Anthony Salvanto, our Director of Elections, down on the convention floor. Anthony, thank you very much. Next, on this special edition of the CBS Weekend News from Cleveland, we look at perhaps the most difficult challenge the next president will face on day one. The next president will face countless challenges on day one. Tonight, we're going to begin a series of interviews on the most serious of them, beginning with Syria, a nation torn to shreds by 5 years of civil war. Margaret Brennan spoke with Leon Panetta, a former CIA director, former defense secretary, and former White House chief of staff.
Inaction is not an option in Syria because if you stand back, the situation is going to get worse. Look, the best case scenario would be to have Assad step down, to have a transitional government be able to establish itself, representing each of the factions that are there, the Sunnis, the Kurds, the Shias, and then, frankly, have the Russians and whatever is left of the Syrian forces join with the United States in going after ISIS to truly defeat them. That would be the best case scenario.
What are the odds of that?
Not very good. Not very good.
What's the worst case scenario?
The worst case scenario is that Assad continues to remain in power, continues to kill Syrians, that refugees continue to flow out of Syria, that the Russians continue to have a presence there and continue to attack our moderate forces that we're trying to train in Syria, and that ISIS then uses that and creates an even bigger base from which to conduct attacks against this country. That's the worst case scenario.
Sounds like you're describing what's happening now.
It is what's happening now.
Will the next president have to commit more American boots on the ground?
I think you're going to have to increase the numbers if we're going to be able to defeat them. We have to increase our airstrikes. We've got to do all of those things in order to put increasing pressure on ISIS, but also on Assad. We can't surrender one objective for the other.
Here's where the candidates stand. Hillary Clinton wants to increase airstrikes against ISIS, arm the moderate rebels, and pressure Russia to get out of Syria. We should add that Panetta is advising the Clinton campaign. Now, Donald Trump announced he'd declare war on ISIS, and he wouldn't rule out more U.S. troops on the ground, although he offered few details. He also said he'd count on Turkey to help fight ISIS.
Margaret Brennan for us tonight. Margaret, thank you. Coming up next, the Republican National Convention has not even begun, but anti-Trump protesters are already crashing the party in Cleveland. The Republican National Convention doesn't gavel to order until tomorrow, but the protests have already begun. Here's DeMarco Morgan.
Stand up, fight back! Dozens of protesters gathered just outside of downtown Cleveland to begin a 2-mile march in what they say are efforts to stop presumptive Republican nominee Donald Trump and the GOP convention less than 24 hours before it's scheduled to convene. Jose Sigfredo Landaverde says he walked more than 300 miles in 27 days from Chicago to make his point.
Well, I am here to protest against the speech of Donald Trump that is creating so much hate and so much division in our communities.
Not far away from this small showing near the Cleveland University campus, thousands of demonstrators from the convention site marched across town over the Carnegie Hope Memorial Bridge, calling for peace and unity.
We're kind of hoping we can build up the energy of loving this space before people who are angry come flying through.
This is what brown power looks like! Despite Sunday's crowds, both large and small, the city is bracing for much worse. Starting Monday, Cleveland municipal courts will extend their hours from 8 to 20 hours in order to process what they estimate will be 1,000 arrests a day. City Council President Kevin Kelly says the city is also prepared to handle the worst-case scenario.
Anything that can be anticipated has been anticipated, and there's a plan for anything that can be reasonably anticipated for this convention.
This is for statement only. Despite a call to rally by gun rights activists, just 2 people showed up with their weapons.
Scott, there were several demonstrations over the weekend with Cleveland police reporting a new arrest. City leaders say that could all change come tomorrow.
DeMarco Morgan, thanks. Coming up next, Bob Schieffer with some insight into this convention. We have an update now on our top story. Late today, police in Kansas City, Missouri, blocked off the street and surrounded the house where Gavin Long lived. Long was the gunman who ambushed and shot the 6 officers in Baton Rouge this morning before being killed by the police. We're going to end tonight with the Dean of American Political Reporters, our own Bob Schieffer, who is covering his 24th convention. Bob has a little historical perspective.
You know, Scott, watching all of this unfold more and more, this reminds me of my first convention, the 1968 convention in Chicago, when the Democratic Party tore itself apart literally over an unpopular war and the assassinations of Martin Luther King Jr. and Bobby Kennedy. We wondered then if the whole country was coming apart. In the end, it didn't, but I believe it came very close. Now, after another horrendous day in Baton Rouge, we're feeling a sense of helplessness and loss of confidence in our institutions, as we did then. They seem impotent in the face of terrible problems, and a growing divide is there between blacks and whites. As this convention unfolds, there's going to be a lot of talk, but no instant solutions will be found here, nor will there be any such thing at next week's Democratic gathering. These problems have been a long time building, and they won't be solved in the next 2 weeks. Democrats and Republicans now face the same challenge: find ways to work together to solve our problems, or they can continue to work against each other. And the one thing we do know is, so far, that approach hasn't worked very well.
The insights of Bob Schieffer. Bob, thanks very much. And Bob, you'll be with us all week long as we have coverage on the CBS Evening News, on CBS This Morning, and also our primetime coverage every night this week beginning at 10 o'clock Eastern Time.
Thank you so much,
Going to be great to have you with us, Bob.
Thank you.
And that is our special edition of the CBS Evening News. For all of us on our team here in Cleveland, and for all of us at CBS News all around the world, I'm Scott Pelley at the Republican National Convention. Good night.